Okay, everybody, so this is the walkthrough for the attached practice paper, and that is the Level 2 Functional Skills English Reading Sample Assessment on Plastics. So, before you have a go at this, you should have completed a decent chunk of these sections on your Moodle, so that's 1 through to 8. Because these actually sort of pinpoint a lot of the key skills you need to answer these questions. So let's have a quick look at what the paper's asking us to do. So firstly, basic information here. It's a 1 hour paper. You need to answer all the questions. And the maximum marks for each question is shown below. That will become important later as I'll explain. Now, let's have a quick look. Firstly, you're given 2 source documents, and that's quite standard now. They seem to only be relying on 2 source documents. So one is a newspaper article, and the other is an advert of some description. Now you'll notice that these are thematically linked. The theme here is plastics, in particular the damage plastics do to the environment. So let's have a quick look at the opening question. So they've given us a multiple choice question here. And what we're being asked to do, if you want to sort of pause after we have a look through this and have a go at it, please feel free. So question 1 is asking us to find the most suitable headline for the article. And it gives us 4 potential options. Okay, so what we need to do is we need to read these 4 options, read through the source documents and decide which one you think is best. So if you want to pause and have a go at that now, feel free to do so. Okay, so the key skill being tested here really is to do with summarising information, because what you're being asked to do is you're being asked to summarise an entire article down into one headline. That's what a headline is. So if you're stuck on this at all, session 4 here will help you. Now, what you'd have to do here is read through and quickly identify what the most suitable headline for the article will be. And it's not really going to be the dangers and struggles of wildlife in the ocean. It's probably not going to be D either, because D is just a piece of information. And that leaves us with 2 options. What I've done here is I've removed the 2 least likely options and we're left with 2 to guess from. That's a really good strategy with multiple choice questions, because even if you're completely stuck, you've at least got a better chance now of identifying the correct one just purely by luck. Now, in this case, it is C. Single-use plastics should be banned in the UK, says BBC presenter. Now, moving on to question 2. And again, this is very much identifying the main point that someone's making here. So again, if we look back at the Moodle, section 4 is a good place to start here if you're stuck on this, summarising key points in text and identifying similar points. So what we want to do is we want to have a quick look through this. We want to have a quick read through the article and see if we can figure that out. And if you want to pause your video now and have a go at this question, feel free to do so. Right, so this one's an interesting one. Now, we'll go through this and we'll identify potential correct answers, etc., etc. So to explain a range of environmental issues, well, no. Because it's only really dealing with one environmental issue, isn't it? So we can rule that one out. It's call for an increase in the cost of plastic bags. Again, no, not really. She's actually saying that we should ban plastic completely. That leaves us with C and D. So support Costa Rica's policies on wildlife? Yeah, maybe. Or to promote a TV documentary. Let's take a closer look here at the actual source document. So, it starts with the line, in her new documentary, Drowning in Plastic, wildlife biologist Liz Bonin has called for an immediate ban on single-use plastics in Britain. Speaking ahead of her documentary, Drowning in Plastic comes a year after. This documentary, the documentary is repeated again and again. And she's referenced to throughout as the presenter. Not necessarily the wildlife biologist, but the presenter. Now that gives us some very strong evidence that it's probably going to be D. It's promoting a TV documentary. She is promoting a TV documentary she's made. So, moving on to question 3. Question 3 is a layout features question. So if you're stuck on this at all, you want section 2, organisational or layout features. So pause the video now and see if you can answer this question. Okay, so the correct answer here is the web link. So the web link will allow us to click on that and find out more information about this issue. Question 4 deals with tone. Now, tone is dealt with in language and textual features, as well as partially in implied meaning. Okay, so section 6 and section 8 will help you out with this, as will section 3 in parts. Tone is quite difficult to pin down. It's essentially how something's written, sort of like the style something's written in. And again, we've got a nice multiple choice here, so if you want to pause the video and see whether you can figure this out. Okay, so going through again, sort of identifying what is and what isn't. Well, it's clearly not informal. Yeah, could call it biased, perhaps. It's certainly not conversational. It's not written as a conversation between two people, and that leaves us with B and C. It's either biased or it's neutral. Now, in this case, it is neutral. It is neutral because the reporter, while the person being interviewed certainly has strong opinions on this, the reporter themselves, the person writing the article, their opinion doesn't really come across. They are simply giving information about what this woman is saying and when her documentary is on. So, on to question 5. In her interview, Liz asks lots of questions. What effects does Liz want this to have on the readers? Give 2 effects. So here, we want to be looking at language and textual features, which deals an awful lot with language features like this. And questions, specifically rhetorical questions, are a very good language feature. And we need to identify 2 different effects. So we need to be quite specific here. So pause this video, have a go at this question, refresh your knowledge using the Moodle if you have. Right, the best way here is to identify some of these questions. So here where she says, so can we live without plastic bottles? Well, what she's probably trying to get you to do here is actually ask yourself that question, to actually start to think about, well, could we? Okay, so that's one potential answer. Another potential answer here is if we have a look here, I'll have to ask, why isn't UK doing that? And she's also talking here about different ways of recycling plastic, and she is talking an awful lot about her documentary, things within her documentary. And actually, if we look at the mark scheme here, they've identified 3 potential effects that these questions could have. So to get people to think and question and reflect and find out, and again, you don't have to write this exactly. So if you would have said, for instance, to get people to ask whether they could live without plastic, that would be fine. To encourage them to watch the documentary to find out the answers. Again, she's posing a lot of questions, and we assume here that there are answers in her documentary. And to get their interest and make them curious. So again, sort of talking about whether we could live without plastic, again, could be making us curious as to whether we could or not. So, moving on to question 6. In the interview, Liz Bonin argues we can live without plastic. Which 2 of the following are reasons she might be biased in this view? Okay, so she has an opinion. She is coming from a point of view on this argument. She is biased. It doesn't mean she's wrong, but it means she has a strong opinion on a topic. What we need to do now is we need to figure out why she might be biased. And again, this is multiple choice. If you're stuck on bias, section 5 on the Moodle deals with fact, opinion and bias. So please refresh that. So I'd like you to pause the video now and see whether you can identify these. So rather interestingly, the first one is very obvious. She is a wildlife biologist and believes plastic threatens marine life. So yes, she is going to be biased against plastic. We're given no evidence she lives in Costa Rica, where all plastic has been banned. And again, do note here, it's worth 2 marks. And it's asking for 2 things. So A is 1. We don't know about B. She doesn't recommend watching David Attenborough's Blue Planet 2. She doesn't work for an industry that makes less toxic alternatives to plastic. However, she is promoting her documentary about harmful effects of plastic, and she sure isn't going to be advertising new plastic factories in America, is she? So it's going to be A and E. These are the 2 reasons from the text that we can understand she has a biased view on this. So moving on to question 7. Liz feels that urgent change is required. Give 2 phrases she uses to suggest this. And again, 2 marks, 2 phrases. Now, again, you want to be looking here at the fact, opinion and bias section and language and textual features if you're a little stuck on this. Pause the video now and give this a go. Okay, so these are her phrases where she's suggesting urgent change is required, as in change needs to happen immediately. And it's quite important here with these types of questions to look and be specific. You would not get marks, for instance, if you're talking about other things that Liz believes needs to happen. We're looking at where she's talking about urgent change being required. And there are 3 examples here where she says the UK's slower action on plastic pollution was not good enough. So she's basically saying we need change and it's not happening quickly enough. Where she says if Costa Rica can do this, why can't we do it immediately? Again, she's saying this is something we need to do now. Immediately, urgent. And also when she says there is no more time to phase anything out, she's reinforcing this idea that we have run out of time. We absolutely need to get on top of this right now. Okay? So, let's have a look at question 8. Question 8 is slightly more straightforward. We're asked to identify 2 facts and 2 opinions from the article. And again, I would refer you to section 5, fact, opinion and bias. Remember, the fact is something we can actually chart, we can measure. An opinion is someone's perspective or ideas about something. So have a look through the article, see if you can identify those. I'll pause the video and let you get them. Right, there are so many facts in here. I haven't even highlighted them. You could say that she's a wildlife biologist. That would be a fact. You could say that her documentary investigates plastic material, the effect plastic material has on marine animals. That would be a fact. You could say that Costa Rica has banned all single-use plastic by 2021. That's a fact. You could say that plastic bag sales have fallen by 86%. That is a fact. There are plenty of facts here. Opinions are slightly more difficult. And this is where she's getting across her perspectives. Okay, so where she says here, for instance, I just think if we can live without them, we should live without them. That's an opinion. Other people are going to have different opinions on this. And also here, where she says, I do feel that the onus, so the weight, has been placed a lot on the consumer, and that's only part of the problem. So her opinion here is that we're asking consumers of plastics to do too much, when actually it's manufacturing the plastics that causes the problem. And she also says, I don't think this is going to be fixed just from consumers saying no to straws. And again, she's sort of making the opinion here that this is a big problem. It needs to be dealt with at a higher level than just people deciding not to buy straws or not to buy plastic. So, what we're going to do is we will continue from question 9 to 14 in the second video. So, please load that, have your question sheet ready and everything like that.